Top 5 realignment thoughts of the day. I saw a lot, and I'm gonna preface this by saying, look, there's a lot of people send me, like Dylan Vance sends me a lot of great stuff on Twitter. I love you, Dylan. He's fantastic. But a lot of the stuff that you see about realignment out there right now, and Pete Thamel did a really good column looking at every issue, and one of these questions has done that, but he did not make any assumptions. He just kind of put everything out there as this is how it stands now. But if you hear somebody that says they've got new information, they don't.
Well, they may, but today wasn't any new information.
No.
I mean, that was kind of I did see a couple people like, did y'all read the new Thamel? And it's like, there wasn't any like breaking news in there. I will say though, like if you read like the very first part of that, and this was completely unintentional, but I realized after our segment just a second ago, that's exactly what he was talking about, was the whole separation, was it not? Like that was basically the gist of the beginning of it, at least, was that separation, that gulf that's been created, and how like the moves that are being made now like are not going to be the only ones. Like there's still more to come. It's just that nobody has any idea what that looks like.
Here's the thing about the speculation. There are people that you can watch and see if they're usually right or at least on point, and there are some that are going to throw as many things against the refrigerator like you would a spaghetti noodle and hope the noodle sticks.
Just because there's engagement.
Because, I mean, we could all do clicks and views, and there are some doing it pretty well, but my goodness, if you don't hit pretty soon and it's like once a year, then you lose credibility.
I just don't think that, like, when I say you have new information, I don't think there's any new actionable information over the last week or so. I mean, the only actionable information, as a matter of fact, is either going to be the official announcements of SMU and San Diego State in the TV deal. And then once those things happen or don't, then we can start talking about the next steps.
Well, if those don't happen first and those don't happen soon, then I mean, something's going to have to give. Yeah,
exactly. So, but number 5, and you see all this sniping and all this stuff about, if the Pac-12 does this, and is this what you really want? If you're a college football fan, are you enjoying the theoretical journey more than you would the real one? Like, do you really think that like everything's going to be better for your league if you get Washington State and Colorado? Like, do you think that's really good, or do you just want to see the other one collapse? And I'll liken this. I use a lot of American Idol analogies because it was a fascinating American experiment and continues to be. Everybody loved watching the show and voting for people.
Yep.
But how many times have you downloaded Ruben Studdard or Clay Aiken's albums or bought them? Clay Aiken sold so few records, he ran for Congress, okay? That's
Ruben Studdard had some pipes.
Yeah, and he's a great.
But I never bought it.
But he's great. But you didn't buy the album. You were enthralled.
I was mesmerized with his story.
For the journey and the story. But when he got done and he won the thing, and he's like, "Hey, buy my record so I can do this professionally," you're like, I don't care.
Okay.
Well, I don't think this is what anybody wanted. This is what they're having to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wanted the Big 12 to have to go and get BYU. I mean, like, it depends on who you ask. Is this what BYU wanted? Yep. Is this what Cincinnati wanted? Yep. Is this what SMU wants? Absolutely. Is this what OU and Texas and USC and UCLA wanted? Yep, clearly. But for everybody that didn't have a decision to make or was a part of a major decision of moving somewhere, I think everybody's just trying to make the best of the situation. It's not what you wanted. If you asked Iowa State fan what they wanted, then I'm sure that was a Big Ten invite that's never coming, and they're not AAU now. Did you guys see that? They've dropped out of the AAU, Iowa State. So any long shot that you thought that maybe like the big, I mean, that was so far and away a long shot anyways, but they're not even AAU now.
I didn't know that Nebraska lost their AAU once they joined the Big Ten.
But no, I think it's everybody trying to make the best of the situation. No Pac-12 fan randomly was like, it'd be awesome. Let's add SMU. But hey, SMU's the key to you possibly surviving past the next 5 years, then bring on SMU. I think that's what it is. Same thing with the 4 new schools in the Big 12. You didn't necessarily want Houston, but if Houston's going to help keep you afloat and keep you on ESPN and Fox and making the same money, then welcome, Cougars, But nobody wanted this necessarily unless you were benefiting from it, which was 4 Big 12 schools or 4 now Big 12 schools, and then, the other LA schools and OU, Texas.
Yeah. Number 4, what happens when this is over? So, or is there an end to it? Maybe it would be the better way to put this. Like, what is the end to this? And we've asked this question before, but I do think for college football fans, it bears mentioning that we should, because I think it took us 50 years, but we finally got a playoff the size that we're maybe comfortable with.
Maybe who's comfortable with?
College football fans are comfortable with for a little while.
I think
we'll
that's
see.
debatable.
But at least we got to see
there's
it.
a playoff.
At least they got it done. You know,
Which something I never thought I'd ever see in my life.
So, but what do you want overall from all this?
Well, I think you got to ask the heads of the Big Ten and the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're the driving forces of this entire thing, along with the TV networks. So you might even need to ask ESPN and Fox as much as anybody else. What is their vision? Because, I mean, like, this isn't ideal for most involved, but, I mean, it is fascinating stuff. That's why everybody talks about it all the time, because it's absolutely interesting on multiple different levels, and the fantasy booking part of it is the most fun part of it. But I think you got to ask the TV execs that are in charge of what they see as the future, because it very well may be that streaming right now, and I do want to credit some Pac-12 folks for pointing this out, it is, you know, it isn't maybe what we look at right now and think predominantly streaming would be great, but in 5 years, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Now, I don't think the Pac-12 will be spearheading that charge necessarily, but maybe it is. But I think it remains to be seen what the end game is, because that's only in the minds right now of the TV networks and probably 2 leagues. And quite frankly, for all we know, the end goal, what happens when this is over? What happens when this is over is the SEC and the Big Ten break off and maybe even slim down a little bit more, or maybe they add some SEC schools here in a few years, and then they create this final form of what this is ultimately going to look like, of a top 32 or something along those lines, where it's the haves that don't have as much, and then they totally have nothings in a third tier. Same kind of setup almost, but just different.
Just the numbers are changing.
Different groupings.
I don't think there ever is over.
Yeah,
maybe
see,
not.
That's another thing. It's like this is ever, and then like sometimes perpetual.
Do you want to be the person that ends up killing college football for 75 schools?
No, I don't.
Do you want to be that person?
No.
Now, no matter the money or the ego, I don't think Greg Sankey and or whoever the Big Ten commissioner might be. Kevin Warren maybe, because he seemed like he had that killer instinct, and I'm not saying Sankey doesn't, or your market, but I don't want to be that person that kills college football on 65 campuses, at least the way we've had it competitively.
I think for the most part, when Sankey says some of the things he says that are like only SEC specific, he's using a scare tactic to get what he actually wants, because the other, like, if it was up to Greg Sankey, he would just pick up the phone and be like, Big 12, we're doing this. We're doing that. Like, let's get this done. Here's my plan. Let's go. Because he was involved in the playoff committee planning in the first place.
Right.
If it was up to him alone, then a lot of this stuff would already be done, and there wouldn't be any kind of like this crosstalk that we're going on.
I think he's gotten right up to the edge of doing that, and then I think he realizes he doesn't want to be Hitler of college football.
No, but he wants is he's going to use that scare tactic, so they're like, well, I don't want that.
Yeah.
Let's get to the table. That's
Yeah.
what he does. Which leads into this. Would it not benefit college football leaders to speak more openly with each other about these topics?
That's too many words.
But would it?
But it makes sense. Yeah.
But would it not?
Yeah,
like,
no.
Like, they've got to stop pretending.
You think they trade text messages?
I think they do. I just don't think that they are. There's so much cloak and dagger BS going on here that, and I get that it's every man for himself. If you are really going to be like the NFL, look, the NFL owners, all these groups negotiate together as a group.
There are 32 teams who all have a common.
Yes, but guys, they are equal.
Exactly.
This is not equality we're talking about.
No.
The Ohio State admin doesn't give a dadgum damn about what's going on at Iowa State.
Yeah.
Like,
No, they don't.
you know, or Baylor.
Well,
or,
even when Texas was leaving, remember the quote? I forgot who it was, but like, what about the others?
But it's not his
Don't care.
job to have to throw
Right.
the life raft out to
No.
Washington State.
I agree.
You know?
No,
I mean,
but my point is, and this is maybe too idealistic, which you know you never get from me, but when you look at it as a whole, if you're trying to make the whole thing better and not just your own situation better, because eventually the more selfish you get, then the more that gets thrown back against you, and you will suffer. Mark Cuban, I've heard him say it for years, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, and that's what I worry about with college football is that you've got these hogs, and eventually they're just going to get slaughtered because it's not going to be anything that people want to watch.
Yeah, you wonder if any of those commissioners truly do communicate with each other? Like you hear about, there's the Board of Governors, you have AD meetings, the NCAA convention.
Yeah, but
do the commissioners of the 5 Power 5 conferences ever truly sit down and have a frank discussion about life in the future?
I mean, I'm sure they do to some extent, but we're also comparing it to the NFL where there's one guy in charge and there's 32 teams,
there's
and that's
32
it.
guys in charge of one guy.
Okay, well, I mean, however you want to look at it.
Right.
I mean, the same thing could be said then about the commissioners. Well, the commissioners, then that's not 5 commissioners. That's 80-something whatever schools that are actually in charge, not the 5 commissioners if we want to do it that way. So even still, 32 who are all pretty equal, who all get the same good, better, worse, for however, the business goes, they all get it the same, basically. And now, yeah, there's differences as like ticket revenues and things like that, but it's all pretty much like the same. This is all across the spectrum of haves and have-nots.
And that's why I don't think it's
100+
ever
schools.
over.
And it's just a way different ball game you're playing with.
I do think they should benefit by talking more openly about it. And look, if it's Ohio State
Maybe
saying,
they do.
But if it's Ohio State saying, look, we don't give an F about you, Iowa State, at least they said it out loud.
Yeah.
Well, so
All right.
Kevin Warren just tells everybody, hey, we're taking the LA schools.
Yeah.
And we're letting you know about it.
Yeah. Well, number 2, what does the ACC think about all this?
Does it matter?
Oh, I mean, it
will.
matters to them.
I mean, like right now?
Yeah, I think it matters to them because they've got to watch this and then watch.
I actually have great respect for the conference. It's not being flippant because of how long they have left. What does their opinion matter right now?
I'm talking about what it doesn't. Does it matter to the other 4? Probably not. But it does matter for them individually in the conference. Like, how do we in 2036 catch up to all this?
No, it
How
will
do
never
we-
get to that point.
Again, okay, so then it does matter because they got to do it before then.
No,
so it absolutely does matter.
If they wait till 2036, they're going to be like on an island.
Pete Thamel pointed this out, is that the ACC has a different kind of split than a lot of the other leagues. The Pac-12 has this a little bit, but the ACC really has a problem in that they've got several big athletic powerhouses and juggernauts. And then they've got Duke, who's good at one thing that everybody knows. I'm not trying to knock everything, but like Duke's known for one thing. Georgia Tech, for Wake Forest. They've got a bunch of little privates like that too that don't really care as much or can't. Even if they cared a lot, no matter how much they care, they cannot commit the resources that Florida State, Clemson, and Miami, even though they're a private school,
They
has.
can because of the TV deal.
Well,
how does Vanderbilt do it?
Well, but they're in this. They're on the island in the SEC. You're not following me at all. And
No,
that's fine.
Absolutely fine. What I'm saying is I get it. I'm having respect for them, but my point is, what do they think about Wake Forest and no different than Vanderbilt in the ACC, right? Georgia Tech no different than the ACC and Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
So they're going to get their money.
But they're not getting that much. And so, like, their gap. So the reason that Vanderbilt gets the money they get has nothing to do with Vanderbilt. And it's everything to do with who they're aligned with, right? So
that's the way it is in college sports.
Okay. So if you're the ACC and Georgia Tech gets as much money as Florida State, but Florida State's pissed off because their conference can't get them as much money, then Georgia Tech's eventually going to get screwed because Florida State will go somewhere that they can. That's why it matters what the ACC thinks right now, because Georgia Tech does not have value on its own. Georgia Tech has value because they're attached to Clemson and North Carolina and Florida State. That's why they have value. If those schools get pissed off and watching this and have to wait a decade until they get theirs, then that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. I get what you're saying there. I do understand what you're saying.
And I thought about this because Pete Thamel wrote about it today, but I thought, that's a great point, is how long does the ACC stay calm about this and how until they try to do something, because they really don't have the freedom to move, but they could get angry in a hurry.
We're coming
the
up on 2 years since Texas and Oklahoma, and what have they done?
Nothing yet. That's why I'm asking the question. Yeah. You're kind of jumping on a different street than I'm going down here.
Man, I know it's your top 5, but I'm not allowed to have an opinion.
No, I know
on
you're
it.
having an opinion, but we're not talking about the same thing. We're clearly not.
Actually, I think I am. You go ahead. Go to number 1, I guess.
No, I'm not trying to get you mad. I just think that
you're the one yelling.
I'm not yelling.
I'm saying, what does the ACC think about it? What does it matter? Yes, that doesn't mean they can't have their opinions, but they're all in it together. They're still in the same grant of rights. They're still in the same, all that they're, you're not listening to me.
No, I get that it's a long time, and that's your point. I'm saying that.
But if they wait till 2036, there won't be an ACC.
Exactly. So we're kind of on the same page here, and that's why I'm saying, like, they've got to react faster than they are, but there's a division that we're talking about here in that.
So you think Florida State, Clemson will just dump those other ones to go to another conference?
I think if
Oklahoma, Texas
I
did?
think if you look across the conference and you're Clemson and South Carolina's making 3 times as much money as you, and you're Clemson, it's going to piss you off.
So what they're thinking does make sense, but at the same time, there's a lot of camaraderie, even with the money involved. Clemson's going to be just fine. But are they going to leave? Are they just going to dump Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech like Texas and OU? Same thought there? Same mindset there? Same arrogance there? Same ego there?
Not this morning.
Okay.
Not today.
All right.
But do this over a long period of time like the Big 12 did, and then eventually there is, right? So that's what I'm talking about. And number one, where does any leftover TV money go? Because there's the thing, okay, if you think the Pac-12 is going to go away, you might think, hey, that television money will now go into our league. And it might. But if you listen to what Bob Iger said last week about Disney, is that they have to be more judicious with their television money, with their rights money. So if they're doing that and the industry is changing, then the bottom line is that you may not, if it goes from the Power 5 to the Power 4, you may not be getting what you think out of that deal. So just be wary of that if you're rooting for this to happen, that some of that TV money may not go where you think it's going to go, because that's changing rapidly.
Well, that's the whole thing. How much of that money that's left over is even headed towards the Pac-12, or if not, where does it go? And is there that much money they want to spend anymore based on what we wrote or what was sent to us last week on what was Iger and what they were thinking about at Disney and ESPN?
Yep. So there you go. There you have it.
TJ,